I'm Storm Team 27 Chief Meteorologist Paul Wetzel.
And I'm WYTV 33 Pinpoint Weather Meteorologist Ryan Halicki. When severe weather threatens our area, we team up in coverage, and that's what we've been doing the last few days. We want to give you an update on this weekend storm over the last 24 hours. We've gotten a lot of new information coming in on this.
Yeah, new data, shorter range models getting in closer to the storm, and we're getting a better feel for the storm. We've had a pretty good grip on it through the week. We've been worried about the track, and of course the timing of the storm has been fairly consistent, but one of the variables that we've been watching is the amount of rain that we're expecting, the warm air moving into the system.
That's what we've been keeping a close eye on because of the impact that has on the amount of snow that we see. I think we can say over the last 24 hours we started seeing a lot of consistency with some of those higher end accumulation amounts that we've been watching, which is a concern for how much snow we see. We're starting to see some consistency in where that rain goes within that storm, and also with the timing of this, we've had some just subtle changes. It does look like it tries to start a little bit earlier than how it had looked previously.
That's it. We started talking about that yesterday, and this is one of the things that have changed for us today. Storm timing, though, still looking at Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening and Saturday night. The heaviest snow moving through. That steady, heavy snow looks like it's going to wrap up for us early Sunday morning, but that's when we get into the colder temperatures and the blowing and drifting snow through the day on Sunday, and then the cold temperatures moving in. So a lot of impacts with this storm, Ryan.
And it's the first thing that we'll be seeing. The first impacts we get are going to be those road conditions. Those will start to deteriorate pretty rapidly as we go through Saturday afternoon, and as we head into Saturday evening, it's really going to be difficult, if not near impossible, especially depending on your vehicle, to travel through this with very heavy snow ongoing. One of the other things we're concerned about is the risk for some sporadic power outages because of the gusty wind.
Yeah, we'll get into those gusty winds coming up and over 30 miles per hour possible with this storm as it moves on through. So let's get right to it. This is our in-house model that we use nightly on the news. This is now out far enough that we can get a good grip on this storm with it. So let's talk about the timing. There is the chance for some light snow showers or flurries into the start of your Saturday morning. So don't be surprised if you see a few of those around through the morning hours. Now temperatures will be in the low 20s. We're looking for a jump up around 30 as we get into the afternoon. But the heaviest snow, it starts later Saturday afternoon and continues right on into Saturday night. And this is when we get into that chance for a wintry mix. Now you'll notice our in-house model not bringing that mixture in with us, which will help keep those snow totals going. In fact, we could see anywhere from 3 to 5 inches by the time we get into the evening here Saturday, and then the snow continues for us overnight, Ryan.
And it's with the timing of when that starts. It's really going to start coming down hard fast once it picks up, and we look for that between about 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. is when we'll start to see that heavier accumulation coming, and that's when the road conditions really start to go downhill. And then you see here on the model, this is about 10 o'clock at night. It's still heavy snow. The rest of the day will be snowy overnight, and then we get to Sunday morning. We finally start to see this letting up a little bit. We could still have a little residual snow, and there's a chance that we see a little bit of lake effect as we head later in the day Sunday, but the bulk of this storm starts to pull away Sunday morning. And so let's look at the accumulations for this model.
Yeah, and the other thing too, as we wrap this up, we're going to transition that snow from a heavy wet snow. It'll be changing over to a lighter fluffy snow into Sunday morning as those temperatures drop. So as we approach the winds coming up here in a minute or so, you'll notice that it will cause more blowing and drifting snow. Let's talk about totals. Saturday morning, not looking for a lot of heavy snow around, but a quick dusting not out of the question. By the time we get into Saturday evening, as long as you're not getting into that mixture of freezing rain or sleet, anywhere from 3 to 5 inches possible into the evening. And then you could tack on possibly another 4 to 8 inches on top of that as we get on into our Saturday night before the steady snow finally wraps up into early Sunday morning. That's a look at the in-house model that we have here, Ryan. But one of the models we really are starting to like here is this model here. This is the NAM model. I think it's doing a really good job.
And this particular model, one thing that I want to point out here, notice as you get to southern Columbiana County, you start seeing that turn to the purple shade here. This would indicate that changeover, picking up on that possibility for a little bit of a wintry mix, some raindrops mixing in. that's really our only hope with this storm system, to see the accumulations let up, and the best chance for seeing that is going to be through Columbiana County, the southern tier of the county especially. That's something that we're monitoring very closely.
Yeah, and that is, this is now the shorter range model that we didn't have earlier, if you caught us on some of the earlier videos we did this weekend. Keep in mind, places like Wheeling, West Virginia, that's not very far away. Little snow is expected there. So you can see how close we are to this edge of the heavy snowfall. But this model, I think, is really laying in the snow. It does approach a foot to up and over a foot in a few spots, especially in northern Trumbull over into Mercer counties. And that will also include some lake effect snow as we get on into Sunday, Ryan.
And that's the other point to mention here with this, is that as you start heading north, it's really a lot of consistency. As we take a look at another model here, you see those accumulations very high in the north. That's pretty much a likelihood that we're seeing with this, is that the northern parts into Trumbull and Mercer County, very small chance that we could see that warm air get up there based on the data that we're seeing now. Likely to see the higher end, but this model does not show that changeover, and that's how we would end up with the higher accumulations into Columbiana County as well.
Yeah, close to a foot in some spots. And it does look like if we get into this transition, which is probably the biggest question with this storm, that does depend on the storm track. It looks like that'll be mainly south of Youngstown. So about from Youngstown south, having the best chance of that mixture. This is a model that we've been looking at most of the week. It's held pretty good consistency in what it has been showing. Now, the one model that has probably had the most warm air into it, you'll notice the snowfall totals are lower on it. This is the GFS model that has been indicating the best chance for that rain and sleet to move in, and it continues to this hour, trying to bring in that rain right into southern Columbiana County, or sleet and freezing rain, that wintry mix into Saturday evening.
And we've been watching this over the last really several days. This model, what's interesting with this is we haven't yet seen this move into agreement with the other long-range model, or vice versa. They've both kind of been bullheaded on the scenarios that they're showing, and this is a concern here, that we see that changeover, and that really drops the accumulations very quickly as you see that take place. Notice southern Columbiana County here showing upwards of 5 to 6 inches because of that change. So that's what we're watching for very closely. But still, what you'll notice with this as well, as you start heading off to the north, you get to Trumbull, into Mercer counties, that's a very high impact snow, even if it's not quite into the double digits on this model. In that amount of time, that's going to take a while to clear out.
Yeah, when we start talking about 7, 8, 9 inches of snow, what's a few more inches on top of that, right? And that's what we're dealing with this storm as we go into Saturday evening and Saturday night. So one out of the 4 models we're looking at here tonight is kind of the outside laying model, but it's not totally out of the question. So that's the tricky part about this storm moving in as we go into the weekend. So here's what we're looking at here. A rough swath of 8 to 12 inches, the most likely scenario for us, and of course less as you get into Columbiana County if that rain and sleet mixes in for us, Ryan.
And if we don't see that changeover taking place into southern Columbiana County, then we would be looking at, again, the widespread in our likely category here. It would be across the board, and there is even some potential that a couple of spots see a little bit higher, perhaps overperform a little bit, and what you saw there, upwards of perhaps 13 to 14 inches. It's not out of the question.
And that's where we get into the snow ratios, because at first this is going to be a heavy wet snow, so you might get 3 to 4 inches that starts to compact on the ground, and it may not seem like a lot, but as we get deeper into Saturday night and Sunday morning, that snow becomes fluffier, so it adds up even faster. So our ratios in the snowfall accumulation will change drastically getting into Sunday morning, so that in turn ties into the timing of the storm system coming through. And
that deals with it's tied to the temperature and the amount of moisture that's within that snow. So typically around 32 degrees, you'd be looking at roughly about a 10-to-1 ratio, meaning we're looking at about 1 inch of water equivalent to about 10 inches of snow. Absolutely. But as the temperature starts to come down, which is something we are going to start seeing as we get into Saturday night and that colder air works in, that ratio starts to change, and that 1 inch of water can equal much more snow because the snow is fluffier and drier.
Yeah, we're getting into the 20 to 1, possibly 25 to 1 type ratio. And that is going to happen because the temperatures are going to drop into the middle teens by Sunday morning. Now, another story with the storm system is the gusty wind, because that too becomes a problem as that snow gets fluffier on into parts of Sunday morning. So looking at Gust Tracker through the day Saturday, those winds will start jumping up into the 20s. But by the time we get into Saturday night with that heavy snow, gusts to 30 to 35 miles per hour possible on into Sunday morning. This creates a new hazard with blowing and drifting snow. So even though maybe the heaviest snow stops in your location first thing Sunday morning, you still want to watch the roads as they're trying to get them cleared off through the day, because that gusty wind out of the northwest is going to help drive those snow drifts across the area.
And a couple other points with this too. This is where that concern for some sporadic power outages comes from. Now, when the winds pick up versus the type of snow that we see can have an impact on that. If we are still seeing that heavy wet snow that sticks well to those branches before the wind starts to pick up, that can cause make those branches a little bit heavier. If we start transitioning over to the fluffy snow, that's not as much of a concern. That wind would just blow the snow right off the branches. Now, the other thing we have to watch for is if we do see that little bit of a wintry mix, especially through portions of Columbiana County, well, that can make that snow really want to stick to those branches. If you start getting a little pocket of some freezing rain in there, makes it heavier on them. So there is that concern for sporadic power outages because of the gusty wind.
Yeah, if you think about a tree branch, you put some snow on it, then you layer a crystal layer of ice around it with that sleet and freezing rain, and then you add more heavy wet snow on the outside of it. Of course, we're just basically making a sandwich to make that branch even heavier, and then you throw in 20 to 30 mile per hour winds, and then we get into those power outages that Ryan was talking about. So the wind also going to help drive the temperatures down, but they're going to be cold enough as it is. We'll be in the middle teens here Sunday morning. Watch what happens through the day, though. We drop not only out of the teens, but into the single digits. And by the time we get into Monday morning, approaching 0, Ryan, and that's not even the wind chill.
And it's the wind chill will really be a factor here at this point, because as those temperatures drop, we have that gusty wind. So you see, picking this up here Sunday morning, wind chills already showing around 0 degrees. And then as we go further through the day, the wind chills drop. By 7 p.m., starting to see double-digit below 0 wind chills, as cold as perhaps 10 below 0. And then through the night, it will still be pretty blustery with temperatures around 0 degrees for the actual air temperature. That will allow wind chills to drop to between as low as -20 to -10 degrees overnight into Monday morning.
Yeah, real cold start to your Monday morning, and Monday is going to be a cold, frigid day for us. High temperatures only around 12 degrees, still the chance of some lake effect snow showers around in the morning. So what we know that is new for us tonight is the consistency of most of the modeling is holding, and that increases our confidence as we get into this storm. It's still on the way. We know that for sure. The timing has changed just slightly, getting into some of that snow earlier. We started talking about that last night, but it still looks like that heaviest snow comes later Saturday into Saturday night, wrapping up Sunday morning, and the potential is there for blowing and drifting snow too with those gusts around. So definitely a bigger storm moving in this weekend, one that's going to impact travel, especially if you have to move around as we go into Saturday afternoon, Saturday night into early Sunday morning.
And a couple other points to make with this too. This is going to be one of our larger storm systems that we've had in terms of snowfall over the last several years. And one of the points to keep in mind, I've been trying to mention this too, when you go to dig out, keep your own physical fitness in mind. If you're not used to doing strenuous labor, I know it seems like snow, it seems like it's pretty light, but that's a lot of hard work. So when you go out there, if you're not someone who's overly fit or overly active, just make sure that you're cautious in doing so. Take your time, take it easy, make sure you're bundled up because of the cold, and if at any point you start feeling overly exhausted, or if you start feeling any of those sharp pains in your chest, immediately stop and call 911. These types of storm systems, I remember when I had gone up to Buffalo, New York in 2014 when they had that major snow event, they had a lot of problems with people trying to shovel out. they ended up started showing signs of heart attacks, and that could be very dangerous, especially when it's really difficult for the crews to get to you. So please keep that in mind and just make sure that you're staying safe.
Yeah, and even that increased in the risk and the chance there with the colder temperatures that we'll be experiencing when most of you are trying to dig out, and that would be into Sunday with those colder temperatures around. So good points for sure. We all want to stay safe through this storm, be it travel or health. And again, this is where we're sitting at tonight. Not a whole lot has changed for the most part as far as what we're looking at in the accumulation totals of this storm into the weekend, but we are keeping a very close eye on it. As you know, we'll have another video tomorrow night. Once again, hey, we're a couple of days away. Friday night, tomorrow evening, will be a day away, a much better outlook on the storm and timing, and we'll update you again. And of course, you can always get the information. We'll be on the air as constant as we can as we go into the weekend with the storm, monitoring it.